Hello YouTube, Solidus here, and today I'm going to be taking you through my Outlaw Rogue class guide for patch 8.1.5. If you're like me and you've been watching any of the MDR, you will have noticed that these are being heavily favoured in every single group, with the sole reason being that they can pump out so much damage and they have some incredible utility in the dungeons, and they can push keys ridiculously high. It has been very fun to learn and to play. There is a slight RNG element in playing an Outlaw Rogue, which I'll come on to in just a short while, which can be frustrating at times, but overall I have been having lots of fun, and this is now my main in World of Warcraft. So to get into it then, let's have a look at some of the talents you are going to need to push those numbers that you are seeing in the dungeon. So in row 15 you are going to want to take Quick Draw, which gives you a half cost use of pistol shot granted by Sinister Strike, now generates 1 additional combo point and deals 50% extra damage. So as you can see, you are going to get more damage from this talent, and you are also going to generate more combo points, which in turn means that you can use your finishing abilities sooner rather than later. The next talent in row 30 you are going to want to take is Acrobatic Strikes. This is an absolute must as it increases the range on all of your melee attacks by 3 yards, which when you activate Blade Flurry, which we'll talk about in a short while, means that you can actually cleave onto more adds than you would without getting too close to them. It's also great for Mythic Plus in plus 10s when you are moving out of ground area of effect abilities, such as the Shadow Smash from Reaping Waves, for instance. So very, very good there. In row 45, you're going to want to take Vigor. It increases your maximum energy by 50 and increases your energy regeneration by 10%. Speaks for itself, more energy, and you get it back quicker. The next one you're going to want to take in row 60 is Cheat Death. So every 6 minutes, any fatal attack instead reduces you to 7% of your maximum health. And for 3 seconds afterwards, you take 85% reduced damage. So again, this is great because it will stop you from getting one shot, or if you're low on health and you do take extra damage before your healer can get you up, this will save you once every 6 minutes, so definitely worthwhile. In row 75, you're going to want to take Prey on the Weak. Enemies disabled by your cheap shot or between the eyes take 10% increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds, and as you are going to be using between the eyes frequently, this is a great source of extra damage for the entire party. Alacrity in row 90 is where you're going to be looking here, which gives your finishing moves an 20% chance per combo point to grant 2% haste for 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So you can get more haste over 20 seconds each time you use one of your finishing moves. Again, because you can generate extra combo points, and because of some extra talents that you might want to take, Azurite Traits you're going to be using, this does come in handy quite a lot. The last row, there are a couple of choices you might want to take, but for me, I just stick with Dancing Steel in row 100, and this increases the duration of Blade Flurry by 3 seconds and its damage by 5%. If you're going to be running keys quite a lot, and you are going to be pulling in numerous adds at the same time, then obviously this is great because you're going to be wanting using Blade Flurry as often as possible, and the extra damage will see you jumping to the top of the DPS boards more often than not. So they are the talents then that I end up running more often than not, and pretty much I don't think I've changed them since I've started playing this rogue, and like I said, it's been great to play. When you have a look at your Azurite traits then, there are key ones that you are going to want to make sure that you've got on your Azurite gear as much as possible. Now you will notice that I am running the engineering leather headpiece, the goggles, and that is because I found that not only do they have the Azurite traits that you want on there, but the engineering specific traits are great, especially in AoE situations as well. So let's have a look at the Azurite traits. So on your outer rings then, you are going to be wanting to take at least one, and preferably only one, keep your wits about you. So this is a Azurite trait that you can use, and each time an attack blade flurries, it increases the chance for Sinister Strike to strike again by 2%. And additional strikes of Sinister Strike deal 2,330 more damage. Now, it's only going to get most of its value from its first trait, so don't think that you need to stack this as much as possible. The next one that you're going to be wanting to look for is Deadshot, and as you can see, it is here on the engineering headpiece. And between the eyes increases the damage of your next pistol shot by just under 3,500. It's generally a trait that you're going to want to go for. It's fairly strong without having to have multiple ones of it, but again, you can put more than one trait on if you wish. It is entirely up to you. Another trait that you're going to want to go for then is Ace Up Your Sleeve. It has the same benefits as Deadshot, but you can get it from certain pieces of gear, which is typically found from a raid, for instance, not necessarily running Mythic Plus. Some other Azurite traits that I am running is Overwhelming Power. Your damaging abilities have a chance to grant you 25 applications of Overwhelming Power, which grants 26 haste. And what this does is it will stack up, and then it is removed every 1 second or whenever you take damage. Now, as a rogue, you're typically not going to be taking too much damage because you're generally standing behind your target, but it will decrease over time. I'm also taking Snake Eyes. When you spend combo points on Roll the Bones, your next 10 Sinister Strikes will deal 239 additional damage for each combo point spent. So obviously, if you are using 5 combo points, you are going to get over 1,000 additional damage on there. The rest of the Azurite traits, you're going to look for just what you can get dependent on the gear that you are getting. I typically like to have Resounding Protection, so you get an Absorb Shield every 30 seconds. It's quite difficult to find the perfect Azurite gear, especially if you are just using your Titanium Residuum to buy random 415 pieces, which is what I do. You're not always going to get the most optimal setup, but generally speaking, you're going to want Deadshot, you're going to want Ace Up Your Sleeve, and keep your wits about you. So keep your eyes peeled for those Azurite traits. In terms of stat priority then, you are going to be focused on, obviously you're going to want Agility as a rogue, then you are going to be focusing on Critical Strike. Critical Strike is key for Outlaw Rogue, and then Haste, then Versatility, and then finally Mastery. Basically, just look for gear with Critical Strike and Haste on, and then use the others to build up where you need. As you can see, I'm fairly low on Haste on this rogue, and I am looking for more pieces with haste on. If you're going to be using gems and enchants, then typically speaking, you're going to be wanting to take Critical Strike gems, Pact of Critical Strike, and for your weapons, I am using Deadly Navigation on my main hand, and I am using Quick Navigation on my offhand. So they are the talents, the Azurite traits, and the stat priority. So let's talk a bit about your rotation as a rogue. So typically speaking, then you are going to start off in stealth as a rogue, and you are going to use ambush to open. Once you have ambush, you are then going to use Sinister Strike up until 4 or 5 combo points, at which point you are then going to be looking to use Between the Eyes. So if Between the Eyes is procced, that is a top priority ability that you are going to want to use, and that is a finishing ability. Once you've used this, you are then going to build up your combo points again to where you're going to get 5 combo points, and you are going to want to Roll the Bones. Now, Roll the Bones is probably the thing that makes an Outlaw Rogue, and this is the RNG element that I was talking about. Every time you roll the bones, it will use a finishing move that rolls the dice, and it will provide random buffs dependent on where the dice end up. The more combo points you use, the longer the buffs will last you. Now, the RNG element of this is you have no control over what those buffs are, and sometimes you'll get 1, sometimes you'll get 2, and if you're really, really lucky, you'll get all 5 buffs active at any one time. Now, the way that I typically do this is I will roll the bones, and as you can see here, my crit buff has been applied, and you can tell what it is by the little shark fin in your buffs, and it will increase the critical strike chance of Between the Eyes by 60%, and then all other abilities by 20%. If this one ability is active, then I will leave this and I will not roll the bones. If it doesn't roll, and for instance here I have got combo points, then I may consider to roll the bones at my next 5 combo point ability if Between the Eyes is not available. If you get any 2 buffs, then generally speaking, you are just going to want to leave them and carry on. So as you can see here, I have my crit buff, and I've also got Skull and Crossbones, which gives Sinister Strike an additional 30% chance of striking an additional time. So that is the general rule of thumb with Roll the Bones. If you get any 2 buffs active, then leave it. Obviously you get 3, 4 or 5, you definitely want to be keeping it. If you just get the 1 buff, then you might want to re-roll unless it's the critical strike chance. But if your enemies are close to dying, or if you don't see any real need in rolling the bones again, then just keep whatever buff you have available to you. It can make a difference on the DPS charts ultimately, and obviously if you get the right buffs active, then you are going to see your DPS increase than if you just get the Sinister Strike buff, for instance. So the rotation then, open with Ambush, get up to 4 or 5 combo points, and then you're going to use Between the Eyes. You are then going to get back up to 4 or 5 combo points, typically 5 when you need to roll the bones. And then as you can see here, I have a proc of Deadshot. You are going to use that, and that will give you an additional 2 combo points. If you get 4 combo points, then use your finishing abilities. It's typically not worth it to try and Sinister Strike again to get 5, just in case you cap and you go over 5 combo points, because obviously you can't get that. So that's typically what you want to do. And that is the rotation, essentially. And you will then use Dispatch as your finishing move when Deadshot, Between the Eyes, is not available. So let's start this again. Let's go into stealth. Okay, so you come up to the target and you are going to open Ambush, and then you are going to use Between the Eyes, build your combo points up, roll the bones, and then you are just going to go into your rotation. Use Dispatch, use Deadshot, use Dispatch. As you can see, I've got another proc of Between the Eyes. Once I've got 4 or 5 combo points, use that, use my proc of Deadshot, 4 combo points, move straight into Dispatch. So one thing I've noticed while playing this is if you are a key spammer, then that can actually work against you, because you might actually miss a proc and use the wrong ability if you are too quick with your abilities. So that's for single target damage. You are then going to incorporate Blade Flurry into your rotation if you are in an AoE situation. So it is essentially the same rotation, but all you are going to want to do is you're going to want to activate Blade Flurry, as you can see here, and then use your abilities and your rotation as normal. And what you will see, as you can just about see, my attacks are hitting this training dummy as well. And because you've got the Acrobatic Strikes talent, you don't necessarily need to be too close to them in order for Blade Flurry to attack. That is the rotation in a nutshell. It's fairly simple. It is more down to what buffs you get from Roll the Bones. So let's talk very quickly about your utility. So as a rogue, you've got some key abilities. So obviously you've got stealth, and you can CC with sap. You'll have seen this all throughout. It's been part of a rogue's toolkit for a long time now. So it's great at locking down enemies in dungeons that you want to move past. The next thing you have got is Shroud, which is one of the main reasons why these classes are being used in the MDI. This will extend a cloak that shrouds all party and raid members within 30 yards for 15 seconds. It is on a long cooldown of 6 minutes, but what this does is it enables you to skip a large number of mobs that you don't necessarily want to fight. For instance, in Outlaw, this is great for skipping the 2 trash packs leading up to the second boss in Outlaw. And then, with its other utility of Vanish, you can then, as a rogue, run out first after you've downed the boss, pull all of the mobs and let everybody run the other way, and then you can vanish so you can skip those mobs without even having to touch them, because let's face it, everyone hates those mobs. There are skips in pretty much every dungeon that you can use Shroud for. In Temple of Sithralis right at the beginning. In Toldagor, you can skip through a load of mobs. In Underot, you can skip the first couple. And you can also skip the last few before the final boss, for instance. There are a ton of videos on YouTube showing you how to do that. So if you are just learning and you want to know where all the skips are, then I strongly suggest looking for a YouTube video that will show you that. So there you go. That is a very simple and straightforward explanation of how to play Outlaw Rogue. It doesn't take too long to get used to. And like I said, it has been incredibly fun to play in both Mythic Plus and Heroic Battle of Azeroth raids. I haven't tried it in Mythic yet, but in Pug raids that I've done through Battle of Azeroth, again, I've been very competitive in keeping up at the top of the DPS leaderboards in there as well. And at the end of the day, that is incredibly fun. I strongly suggest taking the engineering profession because not only do you get the goggles, but then you're also going to get things like the temporal time shifter, which allows you essentially to combat res people, and some other various goodies that you get from engineering. So there you go then. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And I will be ensuring to keep my class guides up to date as the latest patches roll out. So check back in patch 8.2 to see if anything major has changed with the Outlaw Rogue. Thanks for watching.